Well, Dave, we've been going off the deep end for almost 300 episodes,
Ooh.
and Hummingbird is certainly here to tell us how to do it well. So,
Well, you definitely use the hummingbird to find a rock to fish for red snappers, that's for sure, because if you're not on the rock, you're not in them.
you're right.
So, well, we're going to talk a little bit about an American red snapper, because that's what I'm used to catching mostly. I do catch some blacks, but mostly black snapper. Mostly we fish for the reds. And you can catch them all around Florida, from the Gulf of Mexico up the East Coast. Most of the time, they're in between 30 and 300 feet. If they're in 30 feet of water, you're really loving it, because it's usually in the wintertime. They'll come in during the wintertime in the shallow stuff. But most of the time, when we catch them up off the East Coast to Central Florida, we're fishing between 100 and 300 feet of water. And boy, they've been stacking up lately. All these measures that, you hear a lot of people complaining about all these measures, about how all the red snappers are just, there's more red snappers than ever. That's why, is because we've started putting some limits on them. And boy, when I was a young man, my grandfather never brought home a red snapper under 15 pounds ever. They were always big ones. So when we're out there trying to catch a big red snapper, we want to try to use a live bait. Usually, if we're going to use a live bait, we want to use a knocker rig, which is what this is. It's what the boys were talking about. It's a big weight that slides up and down on your leader and into a circle hook. A lot of guys are using circle hooks nowadays for their bottom fish. I wouldn't fish with bottom fish without them, because once you hook a fish on the circle hook, you're going to catch them usually. Right. A lot of times a J hook with even an offset circle hook, they'll catch inside. When the fish swallows the bait, they'll catch on something soft. You'll pull, and you'll pull the hook. And it happens a lot. And if you have a good circle hook that catches in that corner of the jaw, you're going to catch them. You're going to want to use anywhere between 50 to 80 pound fluorocarbon for your leader to your hook.
Right.
And any kind of braid you want, from 30 to 80 pound braid all the way back up to your reel. Because when you're fishing in deep water, you can feel every little tap with that braid. And when you get a tap on that live bait with a snapper rig, you want to let them go a little bit. You want to let them go, little go, and then start winding. And wind. And when you thought you've wound enough, go ahead and keep winding some more, because you want to keep winding on.
You rather use a conventional rod like this Akuma, Dave?
I would,
or
yes.
Would you
we're fishing
using a spinner?
You're fishing in 200 feet of water, or 150 feet of water. I don't like to use a spinner. I like to use a conventional reel with a lever drag and something that I can put a lot of drag on.
Yeah.
A lot of spinning reels, even they make some spinning reels that can hold a lot of drag, but you really want to be able to pull them off the bottom. And you want to pull them off the bottom while you're reeling. And you can reel a lot better with a conventional than you can with a spinning rod under load.
Correct.
When you've got a whole lot of load on a spinning reel, it's hard to wind, and it's a lot easier to wind with a conventional reel. And you never want to wind against the drag either way.
All right, so what are some of these other rigs you got here?
Well, that's just a regular old snapper rig that you can buy at the Bass Pro. They sell them. It's got a swivel on the end. One thing you always have to remember, if you're going to be using big baits that spin a lot, you might want to go ahead and get away from using a barrel swivel. And most rigs that you buy have a barrel swivel on them. Now, a ball bearing swivel will spin under a load. So if you're in a current or anything and something's pulling on this, the barrel swivel might not spin, because it won't spin and release that spin, and you'll get a big spun up leader. If you use a ball bearing swivel, you're likely not to get that spin and ruin your bait presentation.
All right, so I see this box of squid. What are we going to do?
You hear a lot of guys talk about catching big snappers on live baits. You have to use a live bait, but you don't. A big snapper will eat a big piece of squid.
So we're just going to take this squid, put it here so that it doesn't spin on the way down.
Correct. You want to try to make it as aerodynamic or hydrodynamic as possible. And then, you can put 2 on there. The bigger the thing is.
2 squids?
Yeah, you can put 2 on there. The one thing you don't want to do is put so much bait on there that it bunges up your hook. And a circle hook can get bunged up easy if you put too much bait on it. And what happens is he'll swallow that whole big ball, and you'll just pull the whole ball and everything out without it finding the corner if there's too much bait in the gap.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you have enough gap so that when this slides into the corner of his mouth,
it gets the corner.
Got it.
And you can use that on the chicken rig. I got a chicken rig here.
You do?
Which is that's one right there.
Chicken rig.
That's got 2 hooks on it, and that's.
You even saw there in the video at the top of the show.
Right.
We had 2 red snappers fishing with Chris Seeger.
Right.
So this is going to have the weight on it on this end. I don't know if you can see
it
that.
doesn't
And then
matter
you're going to
which
have
one.
2 baits.
Yeah, you put weight on that end and put these squid on a dropper loop.
Yeah.
And you'll catch them 2 at a time. The commercial guys will use they're allowed to use big, 5, 6, 8, 12 hooks on them, dragging the bottom.
What a
They'll catch
dream,
12 at a
dream
time.
come true, man. You have a twofer. You catch two
If
for
you're-
one.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And if you just got to remember, not jerk. If you're using a circle hook, a lot of guys learn fishing to just jerk anyway, and especially when you're bottom fishing, wind till you think you don't need to wind anymore, and then wind a little bit more, and you'll catch a lot more fish with the circle hooks and just winding versus doing all that jerking. Because when you're 200 feet or 100 feet of water, you're not even pulling all the stretch out of the line. If you're using braid, you don't have any stretch, but you're not pulling any stretch out if you're using mono for sure. So, start winding and don't jerk.